Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Kabir Singh. I grew up in Southern California and went to college up in the Bay Area at UC Berkeley. I now work in finance in San Francisco, but my background's all been in music. I've been studying and playing the tabla, which is an Indian drum, since I was 6 years old. And most importantly, I belong to the Sikh religion.
Can you tell us a little bit about your culture?
Sure. I'm from a first generation Sikh family here in Orange County, and our culture links all the way back to North India. From my own experience, what it means to me is always being a student of whatever I'm partaking in. I guess my favorite thing about my culture is the idea of mentorship. There's always an idea of having a guru or someone who knows so much about everything and being able to learn about different things of life from someone. So I did study business in college, but my background in terms of all my experiences before going to college were all in music, and specifically North Indian classical music.
Can you share a little bit about your faith?
So I belong to the Sikh faith, and I try my best to represent not only my faith but my community as well here in the United States by maintaining my identity in terms of how we physically appear. And I guess the relationship with music came in to my religion in the sense where Sikhism is mostly all about always trying to learn as much as we can and having a respect for the people who came before us in terms of the experiences that we can learn from them.
So how does your family practice Sikhism? What do you do as a
Sure.
family?
Sure. So I guess my family background is a little bit different from other people in my generation here, where my family already experienced what it was like to be a first generation Sikh in other countries, with my parents growing up in East Africa or in the UK. So I think what that ended up doing was bringing a sense of identity wherever they went. And for them, that identity came through music. So whenever we're all together, we're always trying our best to involve music, and it's always been the way we sort of not only practice our faith, but also kind of communicate with each other. I'm primarily a tabla player. I grew up, it was the first instrument that I sort of had an aptitude for. So I had my first recital, or I guess first time playing in front of a public audience when I was around 3 years old. And that was at our local Gurdwara, or Sikh temple. And from there, I guess, my parents saw an aptitude, so were really prompt in making sure that I learned traditional music the way that it's always been taught, which is through a guru. So once I began learning music from someone who was doing it professionally for generations, it became more so about just a performance, but more so a spiritual practice.
I wanted to touch a little bit about cultural awareness. Do you feel that people have cultural awareness about Sikhism?
I think when people first meet me, they expect me to be very strict in the way that I act, or kind of like cautious about what I do, or mindful about what others are doing and whether I want to associate myself with certain things. But then it takes like 5 minutes for them to realize that I'm not that kind of person at all. So I think the biggest questions I always get always circulate around, they start off with, I guess, simple questions like, why did you choose that color of turban today? Or like, why do you choose to keep your turban or beard? So those questions are definitely the great icebreakers to ask someone who looks like me to get to understand them better.
Is there any significance of color of the turban?
I mean, depending on like my mood, of course. Like, if I'm feeling happy, I'm gonna wear some bright colors.
Right.
And if I don't
Very
have my
good.
makeup on, I'll wear a nice somber one. No one sees me.
That's that's great. I love that. I love that aspect. What do you want mainstream America to know about you as a Sikh and you with this identity?
People may see me, but as soon as I start talking and they can hear like I sound just like them, like I feel like a lot of like like any preconceived notions kind of get like erased just based off of our appearance, especially as if we come into the office like with the full beard. There's always this pre notion that like, oh, when someone has a full beard, it's like they don't care about like how they're presenting themselves. And I think it takes a while to overcome that stereotype people have. You have to really sort of like push through and show them that you're someone who always shows up.
How has society, you touched a little bit about it, but if you can further develop a little bit for us, how society has impacted your decision to wear a turban and to keep the identity?
Every generation has their own sort of plight that they go through. And I think ours definitely was influenced by 9/11 and growing up and being associated with a group that we weren't a part of or values that we don't represent as a community. Some of us kind of went through a rough time in figuring out who we are or kind of feeling like alone in the world. And I think it was in those moments, those struggles, where it almost acted like a crucible of development, where I realized I would never wish this on anyone else to feel this way, and I would never want anyone around me, my friends, to feel like they don't belong or that there's no reason for them to be who they are. So I was born in California, but we were actually living in Atlanta for those years. So we were there for a handful of years, and I was in first grade, and I remember like coming home from school, and my mom and a couple of the other women in the neighborhood from different backgrounds were all at my house in literally a prayer circle. So it was nothing I've ever seen before, but I remember it something that completely changed. Like the weeks after that, there was definitely a noticeable change in at school or like just going to restaurants. And I mean, being at such a young age, it didn't really occur to me that it was had anything to do with the way like I looked. But then I remember it also during that time was when I did have sort of these like life changing lessons on finally learning what race is and that apparently I belong to a race to other people. So it was definitely a formative part of growing up. And talking to a lot of people who identify as a Sikh in my generation, I think we've kind of all come to terms with things that happen, these struggles that happen with our community are ultimately the reason why we are who we are at the end of the day. Unfortunately, these struggles occur and they are terrible for anyone in these situations. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what pushes us and helps us really fuse with our values. So, I mean, personally, I could, looking back, I think if something like that had not happened at such a young age, I don't think I would have ever developed that sense of value of one, respecting other people regardless of whether they didn't respect me back, or two, like making sure everyone feels included at all times, or three, just overall composing myself with honor and making sure that I recognize that as someone who identifies like this, I represent my community. Whether, I mean, that's a good thing or a bad thing, the way that society worked in those days, whatever I did was linked to everyone else. So those kind of values definitely formed who I am, that they made them stronger and made me want to do everything even more with more effort.
Kabir, I see that you are very strong, you feel very strongly about your identity and how you reflect on others. But has just being in society in general, has any of your appearance ever created an obstacle for you in communicating with others?
I'd probably say that it's done the opposite and enhanced the way that I can connect with other people. As a kid growing up through school, things were definitely tough as they are for a lot of kids in middle school or high school. I think everyone is trying to figure themselves out in those times. And at first, I think when you see someone like me walk into a room, there's an immediate difference. So I think as humans, we're always looking for people that are similar to us to sort of connect with. So I think that always led for maybe at first an awkward first impression. But I think one of the privileges that I have as a firstborn American Sikh is, I mean, when I start talking to people, I sound just like them. So they're ultimately able to sort of connect with me and feel more comfortable sharing who they are, because they feel like they're talking to someone who's just like them.
This is something that you are now being able to share with the world. So we're very grateful for you to be able to share that with us. And we're very lucky.
When I heard about this whole project, because I remember being in like second grade, third grade, learning about world religions, and like there'd be like one sentence, and then the teacher would like look at me, and all of a sudden, like I was the teacher. So this is awesome.